Welcome to The Short Score, your weekly update of roping news from around the industry, where you can find the latest on the sport from the pro rodeo ranks to the jackpot world. I'm Taylor Vollen, and I'm your host. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Short Score. It's your host, Taylor Vollen. Well, this is our first post-NFR episode, and it just kind of hits different. It's a much bigger or deeper episode than we've had in a long time, I feel like. In August, the team roping world and really all of the rodeo community stopped in their tracks when we learned of Ace Ashford's death. Ace was just 18, a young superstar, younger brother to NFR healer Ross, but most importantly, from the words and stories that we've heard, Ace was just an all-around good and kind person. We've already had the pleasure of sharing the written version of this story with you guys. Chelsea, our boss, crafted it perfectly, I feel like, during the NFR, but she asked me to share it here on The Short Score, and I am so grateful that she did. For today's episode, which is brought to you by Purina, I bring you Chelsea's conversations with Hill Rodeo Cattle's Bobby Joe Hill. He's a longtime friend of the Ashfords and the contractor for the NFR, and Ace's dad, Troy, to tell the story of Ace and Steer 27. I won't spoil the story, even though I know many of you have already read it or heard it through the grapevine, but it's really a true testament that God's hand is seriously in everything. I don't know that anyone's going to listen to this episode with dry eyes. I know that I didn't even make this episode with dry eyes, but I think that's a perfect reaction, and I hope that you are moved by these conversations the way that I was, and maybe you finish the episode with a little more faith and gratitude.
What steer? Give me like you told me that day when we were at.
All right, so at Gatesville, Texas, we tried to do something kind of unique for our amateur rodeo. We did a hand pull barrier, 18-foot score. It was 2 over on fresh steers. And we got a few more teams than expected, and I didn't have enough walking fresh steers, so I had to dip into my NFR pen to get enough to have one for everybody. And when we got done, took them back home, and I was waiting to get them broke in because I was just going to go ahead and use them for a jackpot. There was 50-something head, I think. And then the tragedy happened with Ace, and I got to look at it. I knew he'd just kind of come on the amateur scene, and I looked at the books. He didn't enter nowhere before, and that was like one of the first rodeos he'd went to, and obviously his last. And I went back and looked to see what steer he had, and it was one of the steers that was originally supposed to come out here to Vegas. So I just went and cut the ear tag out of him, stuck him back in the pen because we didn't brand him, we just had ear tags in him. And so I went to the funeral, and I told Troy that I had something to tell him or something for him later on, but not right now. And a couple months went by, and I was talking to him, and I told him I had something for him if he wanted. If not, totally understand. And told him I had the last steer he run. And he said he'd love to have him because he had the first Mexican steer that he had roped when he started. And so I told him, but the chance was he's in the herd to go out here to Vegas. And I said, but there's a process. We'll take them to Driggers. We'll cut them down to 90 and then go the Jingle Bell roping and cut them down to 60. Don't know what happened. We wrapped them the night before, and we loaded them the next morning or that evening to go to Driggers. I noticed he's bleeding a little bit on the back of his leg, kind of below his heart. Had a little cut. Don't know how he done it. Well, I guess when they healed him, that heel rope caught it ripped the skin pretty good, and it was pretty bad. So knowing that was Troy wanted him, like I went to doctor. I've never doctored a steer or had a steer doctor this much in my life. I probably spent more money in medicine than any certain one steer ever. They live or die around our house. And so I was talking to my vet because it looked bad. It was healing, but it looked bad. And talking to my vet, Jared Ranley, and him and Troy are real good friends. And he told me, he's like, well, heck, just bring him to my house and I'll doctor him. He said, we'll save him. And about that time, Troy texted while I was talking to Jared, and he said, hey, did the steer make the cut, and what was the steer's number? And I said, well, I'll call you when I get service. So I called him, and I told him the number. you know, who would want another steer's number? It's no big, it's a steer. And he said he went to the feed store. It was raining that day, and they loaded him with feed in the trailer, Ace's trailer that he hadn't hooked on since the accident. He said he pulled out a couple sacks of feed when he got home and seen it was like a banner that had Ace's face on it. Pulled out another couple sacks, and it was his football jersey with the number 27, same as the steer. And I don't know, it made cold chills run down my back of my legs. Like I couldn't talk for 2 minutes probably. And but I told him, I said, there's if it'd been on the front leg, I would have got a can of gray spray paint him just to have him out here. But it's healed up now, but the first time a heel rope would touch him, it'd crack back open. So he's at the house, and we're waiting to get back home, and we'll go see him, take him to steer. And I bought my first set of steers. Mexican steers. I bought in March of 2005, and I still have 5 of them. And was looking at, or I remembered after thinking about 27, and one of the first steers I had was steer number 27. So I don't know. It must be just a God thing. I can't explain it, but we'll probably never use the number 27 again.
Yeah. How did you know the Ashfords? Just from roping?
Just friends, just known from Ross, just Troy, Jamie, known them long time.
How far are you from them?
45 minutes maybe. And like Ace, he was one you never knew he was at the roping unless he was there paying his fees or picking up his winners. Never bitch, gripe, like never had like 0 problems out of him. And like you have these people nowadays that want to get ticked off and, well, this steer sucked, this one. I'll tell them thanks for coming, and I do not need them back, because what would they give for Ace to be able to run another steer? And like just people, they just think it's owed to them that they run the perfect steer at every rope and every rodeo. And I have 0 tolerance left of me for stuff like that.
This episode is brought to you by Purina. Confidently address your horse's unique weight needs and help optimize their overall well-being with research-proven Purina animal nutrition feeds, designed by passionate equine nutritionists. Partner with Purina to nourish your horse to their optimal body condition. Explore weight management resources for your horse today at purinamills.com/feed-finder.
Now, tell me the story. Bobby Joe told me the story, his side of the steer situation, of steer number 27.
Steer 27.
Steer 27. Tell me about that, about your memory of learning about this situation and how it all came about.
So crazy enough, Bobby Joe had called right after Ace had passed away. I saw him at the funeral, and we didn't talk. We just didn't. We did whatever. We just saw each other, and then he called me probably 2 or 3 weeks after, maybe 2 weeks after we were in the Northwest. We just went to the Northwest and hung out with Ross and all the guys, and just to get it away from the house, and just drove around and actually followed them and stayed in our trailer. And he called me, and he's like, "Hey, I got something I want to tell you," but he never could get it out. He was very emotional.
Yeah.
And he just never could get it out. And he said, "I just can't tell you now, but I'll call you later." And he had told me a story about, let me keep going. So anyway, he calls me when we're back home. So that'd probably be another couple of weeks. So that was a month. And he's like, "Hey, remember I told you I had something I wanted to tell you? There's a couple of things I want to tell you." He said, "I told you first that, Tara and I always said, if Tripp could grow up to be like any kid, we'd love him to be like Ace. Ace would show up in his flatbed truck with his Hughes trailer, unload this badass head horse, come over, shake my hand, say hi, never complained about the flagger, never caused any trouble. The roping would be over. He'd walk up there, pick up his money because he usually placed. He'd walk over here and shake my hand by. He'd load it in that trailer and go home. Like he was the quietest winner I think I've ever met for a kid his age. So he's telling me this whole story, and he said, I just want to tell you, I did some research, and the last amateur rodeo that Ace entered, which this year was the first time he had ever entered one at all, the last one he entered was Gatesville. And that is true because they entered Cedar Park, and I got him turned out because I told him to leave too late. Him and Chet. So anyway, he entered Gatesville with Braden Israel and made a smoke and run, and they pulled the barrier like Cheyenne at Gatesville. And he said, I went and found the draw, and that steer's 27, and I want to give you all that steer. And I'm just like, wow. And the conversation was a lot different than that, but I'm just like, that's, that would just be unbelievable. We'd put him, he knows how our house lays out. He'd be in the pasture right behind our house on our back porch. I said that Jamie is going to be so excited. So that goes, so Ace's truck and that Hughes trailer at the house, we haven't driven the truck or moved the trailer, done really a whole lot of anything. So one day, a couple weeks later, I thought it was rainy, and I thought, man, I need to take his trailer with me to town, to the office, and put feed in it because it's raining. And that way the feed doesn't get wet in the back of my truck. So I unhook his rig, and that's the first time I've hooked onto that Hughes trailer. I go to Belton to work, and when I leave, I go by and get feed. Well, in those Hughes, like the saddle racks on one side, it has double doors.
Sure.
And the other side, no rack. So I had him stack all the feed there. Well, since Ace was a junior, he had, like all the schools do, they make a poster, when you play football. And they put it, on the field. And then after he graduated, they give you your poster. So that poster, he hung on the neck of that trailer inside in the living, where the saddles go. And so when you look in there, you would see it. Well, I had honestly never put a ton of thought in that. So it's dark, and I pull up next to where to unload the feed, and I'm unloading the feed a bag at a time. And as I'm coming down on that side, like I see his head, I see his shoulder pads. I get down and I'm like, oh my gosh, here's number 27. His jersey's number 27. So I call Bobby Joe and I tell him, he's like, you're kidding me. I went, no, that I've got a picture of it. This is his jersey. He's 27. So then it gets crazier. Bobby Joe, I have the text, the day and time he sent it to me. So it was 05, if I remember right. The first M-branded Mexican steer he ever bought. They branded him 27.
Yep. Yeah, he sent me that picture. That's unbelievable.
If people think there's not a God, first off, I don't know how you'd function, because with what we've lived through, if you didn't have faith, we wouldn't be here. And that's the truth. Because faith is the only thing that's got us even to this point to get up and move and see signs of Ace, like truly know there's a God and know Ace is in heaven. And you think about that story right there, you can't make that up.
No.
I mean, we've got pictures to prove it all. And so that is the story about the 27.
And what, and then that steer got hurt, and Bobby Joe said he's never doctored a steer in his life like that.
He said, I've never spent that much money on antibiotics to keep a steer alive. And it's kind of stinks, but it is what it is. But the steer was in the cut to go to the NFR and cut his leg, I guess, when they roped him.
Yeah. And
got an infection and had been limping. And so he kept him, of course, and doctored him and got him back to health. But he definitely was sick. He said he got really sick, and he was worried to death he was going to die.
Yeah. What is it going to mean for you and your wife to look out and see that steer in the pasture?
It just gives us hope and reaffirms our faith of what we do know, where Ace is. Ace is in heaven, and he is in a better place than we are. And God does give us signs that truly is the truth. And that steer will always be, that is the last steer he roped at an amateur rodeo. And that steer will always be a resemblance of of Ace and what he loved of the sport of rodeo, of the sport of roping. And it all aligns. I mean, it's steer 27. His jersey number was 27. And I probably could have been a better dad and remembered that after however many years. But honestly, I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's being honest. I didn't remember. I mean, I think all parents would say that. I don't remember what number my kid wore.
Yeah.
But it was 27. And for us, when we're sitting at our pool on the back porch and that steer can literally come up within 4 feet, it gives us hope to know that we're going to be with him one day. And these are the signs that were left for us that all align. Every one of them aligned together. And there would never, Bobby Joe told me, they will never brand another steer 27. Aces is the last steer.
Yep. That's pretty amazing. I mean, when he told me at Charlie's Rope in there at Northside a month or so ago, and we both immediately, I'm sure everybody who hears this story, the chills that you get and the tears that well up in your eyes, it's, yeah, like you said, how could you not?
No, I mean, it's literally taken us many phone conversations to get through it, and they're going to bring it, the house when we all get home, him and Tara, and I that'll be a rough day.
Yeah.
But we'll get through it. We'll get through it. It's nobody should lose their kid. And it's just the ultimate of the ultimate. And we, for me, as I said earlier, yesterday I didn't want to drive to Rancho Rio from Cape Creek. But I knew if I'm going to honor Ace, I'm going to get up and I'm going to drive over there and people are going to see me. And they're going to see Ace like they did last night on TV. Every one of those team ropers had an Ace feather on their hat. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Yeah, I took pictures. Absolutely.
I mean, and that group, Colby Payne, he texted me last night. It was 11:53. He said, we're going to do this all week for Ace. And it's the greatest picture of his horse stopping last night and him heeling the steer. And you can see Aces. I don't have enough. I wouldn't even have enough time to tell how great that community is. I owe them forever. I'll be grateful to the Western industry and the team ropers and that set of guys forever. When we went to Pendleton in the Northwest, there's nothing to say. There's nothing anyone can come up and say to you when you live through this. But what they do, they just come up by you, give you a hug, and walk off. And that means more than anything that could ever be said. And they've been unbelievable.
I was so proud of... I drove to the funeral and I sat just accidentally with Colby and Justin Davis, and Jade was there. Wow. And like all those guys that are my age, all showed up, and it was if funerals can be beautiful, it was so beautiful. So
thank you. It was a blessing. Billy Pops got here last night and we were sitting out here talking and trying to get Ross and them were trying to get loaded because they had to leave at 5:30 this morning to go to Vegas. But Billy said, I'll tell you, Troy, I'm 71. I have never been to a more moving funeral than Ace's, or a larger one than Ace's. He made a big impression on a lot of people. And, again, for a parent, as hard as it is to have to live through it, it gives you somewhat of peace in your heart.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. It does. And thank you for coming. There were so many people we didn't even know who was there.
I'm sure. No, and I came just because I've known Ross for a long time, and a lot of people I knew were hurting. And I mean, I interviewed Ace when he won the Regatta. I knew those. I've known Ross as long as he's rodeoed, and it just felt like all my people were there. Like I said, I sat down and I looked around, and Justin was next to me, and Colby was next to me, and Jade and Haley were right over there. It was the right place to be in our community, to just be with, like you said, to be with everybody. So
it's the bbest community ever.
Yeah,
it is. It's the best ever, and I'll be grateful to him forever. And just like Chet yesterday, they were calling me from over there, you're going to turn out or whatever, because I was injured. I mean, I'm going to turn them all out. Then someone's like, asking about the refund. Between me and you, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I know how great that community is to me and my family, and I'm not leaving this kid at the hospital.
Yeah.
His parents were all the way in Texas. He's only 19.
Yeah.
And I'll be grateful, and I'll do that the rest of my life to give back. That's what I'll do. That's the truth. But,
well, that is such a remarkable story, and I am so grateful that Bobby Joe and you both shared it with me, because it's just got to do it justice now. It's pressure. I hate.
thank you.